He is a loss adjuster, which means that he goes out to accidents and he sees the results of something that's gone wrong. You're a qualified layman, qualified pilot, you name it, Hilton has done it, and he's got a lot to give.
Thanks, David. 1955, I kicked off as an apprentice with Qantas in Sydney. Spent 12 years with them through to the end of the 707 period. And then finally moved to Perth, which I've never been sorry for, and found my way into GA, which was a very strange introduction from large commercial aircraft. But I spent the rest of my life here, and it's been enjoyable in very many different ways. As a loss adjuster, I've spent 33 years going to accidents, and it's roughly worked out about 40 per year. It's a bit under one a week that I'm attending. So there's about 15 of us in Australia, of which about 10 would be averaging much the same as myself. So if you want to do the sums, it's a lot of accidents nationally in GA. As David said, not all pretty, quite frustrating sometimes when you get to the very bottom of the cause and how simple it was and how avoidable it was. It comes back to one basic commodity which we all possess, and that's the human factor. Over the years, from my time in aviation, there's been a myriad of books written by all sorts of people full of information regarding how accidents happen, how to avoid accidents and all the rest of it. We still have them. A reasonable reason for that, if you like, and that is that there's the attrition at one end and there's a new mob coming in at the other end. So there's always a turnover, which means one lecture doesn't fix the world's problems. It's an ongoing thing forever. In looking back and not digging out any information, but just out of my head, I listed a whole raft of things that are behind the accidents that happen. And as a result, what you'll see tonight from time to time will refresh that concept or that particular reason behind the accident. There's a mixed feeling about a lot of these things, in as much as, for example, the ATSB, when they used to be called BASI, were downgrading on the number of accidents they were investigating. When the question was put to them why, and this is GA totally, why they're downgrading their interest in investigating accidents, their answer was, well, it's the same old things happening all the time. We're not learning anything new. I disagreed with them emphatically, because one instance where the accidents are caused by fuel mismanagement, or however you want to put it, but the background and the reasons for that are never the same, which means it's almost infinite as far as why the problem eventuated, and it wasn't just simply one thing. So there's always a number of reasons behind an accident, and you've probably heard it said many times that sometimes there's half a dozen different components to make up the accident, but sometimes the pilot doesn't see the first two or three, and when he starts to pick up on the fourth or fifth one, he's in trouble already. So there's a moral in the story there, is that you've got to stay on the button all the way, not somehow pick it up somewhere along the way. Considerations to accidents. Basically always when people ask me, I say, well, it really gets back to attitude. And it covers everything. It's not the attitude, it's the lack of, or the poor attitude. The discipline, it's not discipline, it's the lack of discipline. Product knowledge is very high on the list, or lack of product knowledge. Focus, I'm going to have to spell that out. Adherence to procedures. To give you just a very brief example, I was boarding a Cessna 206 in Broome with the owner of the airline, who was a layman, a pilot, separate from the pilot flying the aeroplane, another two ladies, was that myself. There was five aviation qualified people, and we were standing at the back door, and the young pilot came around, and he stood there for a second, and he said, "Oh, He said, well, you all know about this, so he said, I won't go through it. And opened the door, and I said, well, hang on. You know, that's not how it goes. And he looked at me and I said, doesn't matter who we are, you do what you're supposed to do. And that was where the discipline obviously fell apart. He felt a bit embarrassed, thought about it, and then said, oh, well, you know, I'm wasting my time telling all these guys emergency procedures and everything else. Not true. It's the same as we all get on an aeroplane time and time again to go somewhere, same old routine. But I tell you, the difference between not taking any notice of it and when an emergency happens will change your mind as to how well you're ready for it. I can't cover so much in a 1 hour talk tonight with respect to accidents, and I can pick one and spend the whole night on it, and that would be an eye-opener. But at the end of the day, I've tried to cover a whole range of things to make you think a little bit more about what you're involved in and how wide or what the breadth of that involvement is, rather than sometimes the tunnel vision that develops that I'm a pilot and my job's to fly an aeroplane and get it from A to B. Most of you will have had some experience with respect to that's not true, and you're aware of it. But it comes up time and time again in the research into accidents. So I know that there's a lot of people who either get lazy, or have never bothered, or don't consider it necessary, or haven't really taken it on board in the manner in which it was instructors gave it to them and so on. So at the end of the day, there's a variety of things in and around and about flying an aeroplane that doesn't necessarily just relate to the hands-on flying, in other words, the extras. So they'll pop up as we go through them. Just grab my current Australian flying, which is the May June issue, and I was flicking through some of the pages, and it's not the first time, but here it is again. And there was a framed saying towards the back of it, and it was a story between two very experienced, one fixed wing and one rotary wing pilot getting together. And in the story they were telling, there was this comment which says, no one will live long enough to make every mistake there is to be made, so stay safe. We have to learn from the mistakes others make. And then there was another story further forward, and this one really pops its head up a lot. So try and bury it in the back of your head somewhere as probably one of the most important. Why do pilots at all levels think it is okay to push their luck with fuel? I could spend a couple of nights just talking about fuel management and mismanagement and the frustration that comes out of it. And worse is if there are serious injuries or fatals. I've often said to young pilots when I've been talking to them that you're going through a phase where you're learning all the time, and so am I. And don't think one moment that I'm standing here and I don't make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and we all learn from them. But in the flying discipline, there is less of an out from the mistakes you make. If you've got your feet on the ground, you've got your wheels on the ground, you've got your hull on the water, you've got a few things up your sleeve, but when you're up there, decision making becomes very important, and the results of that decision are very important. But when you look at the responsibility, particularly in the commercial sphere, where you put people in seats behind you and then climb on board, silently they sit there, some confident, some terrified. But no one says anything because you're now up there doing things and you're busy and it looks like you know what you're doing because you're turning a lot of switches and you're talking and carrying on, so it's impressive. But no one sort of says to anyone, well, what's he missed? But the story is you shouldn't be, and that's what they do, they trust you. And in fact, I go as far as to say that a lot of the people religious or not, take their God out of their life and put you in that position for the duration of flight. Strongly in the belief that if anything goes wrong, you'll sort it out. So that's the responsibility level that you've got and shouldn't be taken lightly. And to make sure that you feel like you can back it up, then all of these things that come up tonight, put them in the thought processes of your own self-discipline, your own self-training, and how far you take your own interest in the levels of whatever you're doing. Near enough's not good enough, and she'll be right, and all those sort of things don't fit into aviation. And I see it all the time, and it's disappointing. The first one's a Beechcraft Baron that took off out of Perth Airport and spent the day travelling to a remote property that the owner had up in the northwest. His sole passenger was a dog. It was a wonderful day and he came back late in the afternoon, Perth Airport landing, couldn't get his gear down. So he played around for a little while and then eventually went and grabbed the mic and spoke to the tower and said, look, I got a problem, just can I have a few minutes to orbit around and see if I can sort it out. So eventually, when he couldn't sort the problem out, he advised them he was going to manually extend the gear for the landing. Well, I think most of you can see where the handle is. It's behind the rhyolite covering, not outside it. So when he went to put the gear down, he couldn't find it. And when he realised that it was tucked in behind the rhyolite, what had happened was during his daily inspection, which he happened to follow a maintenance period, he didn't check it because otherwise he would have found it. So from a small omission on a daily check, we had 2 bent props, 2 busted engines, and a very busted bottom side of the fuselage, about $350,000 for just one small oversight. So the message there is the daily inspections and pre-flights are important. I've had people after accidents, I've said to them, did you check the fuel vents? Yep. How many of them? Well, one isn't there. I said, I'm asking you. I'm not sure. You see the point I'm making there. The diligence in the product knowledge stopped somewhere. He didn't know how many vents that he should have checked, if any. This was a bonanza that was doing the gas pipe line inspection north of Geraldton, and it had an accident due to a front nose wheel collapse. When we finally got to it, that was the condition of one of the hubs, and I don't think I need to introduce anyone to what corrosion looks like. From my perspective, if the pilot's doing his job on his pre-flight departure checks or daily inspections, if he sees that sort of issue, is that as far as it goes, or should I go and get some advice from somebody that, you know, have we got a problem or not? So we had a look a bit further, and there's the bearing retainer section of the wheel. Now the reason that all became evident was that prior to the accident, that hub was just covered in mud and dirt. So you've got limitations on your ability to inspect the aeroplane if it's not presented in a reasonable manner. And this is just one of those things that's fallen into place due to the pressure of the economies and everything else. Things just don't get done. But how can you do your inspection? I mean, you're not supposed to be an engineer, but there are some things that as a pilot you can go around and have a look at and surely say to yourself, I don't like the look of that, I'll find out a bit more before I take off. Now, the other half of that hub did break off through corrosion. I'll spend a bit more time on this one because there's a few messages in this that will come home to most people on the basis that the human frailty and decision making, finished up leaving the Baron that was in pristine condition, sitting in a rather burned out condition. But very briefly, the pilot was highly rated. He was in his mid-50s, about 12,000 hours, hadn't had an accident before, and was taking a crew, 3 people, up to Halls Creek for a drill crew change. It was hot summer weather. He was up in Perth about 3:30 for somewhere around about a 5 o'clock departure. It was a very early morning start, and it was a flight to Halls Creek. They arrived up there late morning, and the crew got out, and they all travelled up to the Halls Creek pub. And then one of the boys in the crew said to the pilot, "Would you like to come out to the drill site for a run?" "Well, what are you going to do?" And the pilot said, yeah, I'll go out. So, in the heat of the day, he climbs on the back of a troopy and away they go. The crew's changed and the vehicle comes back to Halls Creek, and it's time for lunch. So, a couple of beers are spread around, including one for the pilot, and then they had lunch, and then later on, mid-afternoon, the pilot said he was going to his room for a rest. It sounded like a good idea, and he would see them all for dinner, which he did, and there was a barbecue, and the boys that were coming off the drill rig, of course, were free to drink whatever they wanted to. But as it turned out, the pilot thought he'd just have 1 or 2 more. And then about 10:30, 11 o'clock, he excused himself, said he was going off to bed, and he would see them all down at the aeroplane at 3:30 at the airport in the morning. Well, most pilots know that they're not going to get away with that, because by the time these fellas have had their drinks, you've got to go and haul them out of bed. You've got to somehow get them down the aeroplane. So he organised a lot of their cases and things to be made ready, and they were just to have what hand baggage they needed to get away in the morning. So eventually they did take off at about 4:30, and for most people who know what a black hole takeoff is, the aeroplane got airborne, and the next thing the pilot knew was that he was on the ground, and there was sparks flying everywhere, and the props would make a terrible noise, and a short while later it came to a grinding halt, and then he had to get everyone out of the aeroplane because it was on fire. I think the moral of the story is pretty obvious with respect to the pilot, that he was a very mature man, a very sensible man for the most part, but there was obviously a weakness there somewhere for a short period of time, and he thought he'd join in, push the envelope, because when he went to bed at 10:30, he didn't get any sleep because of the noise in the pub. The heat was unbearable, and so his actual sleep time probably was less than a quality hour before he got up and started getting things organised for the departure. The takeoff was really a little bit out of character. He was cleaning up a bit early before safe height. He was making a radio call, and then the next thing he knew, this was all happening. The passengers wore thongs and t-shirt and shorts, as they do, and all suffered pretty serious burns. The pilot was in a pressure suit for about a year before he got out of it. A number of clues in there for you to think about. I don't know where all you people are going to end up, but there's a lot of pilots get involved in charter and other types of flying to get their hours up quickly, whether it be ag or skydiving or whatever. Nothing changes the rules. And it's just a small story about a few things. There was a lass at the Newman Roadhouse was going back home to Ireland, and the owner of the aircraft said, "Well, you haven't had a look around properly yet, why don't I take you for a fly?" And she jumped at the chance to do some photography. So, being out in Never Never, he flew rather low, And what he hadn't realised was that the fuel tanks weren't switched off and the fuel had gravitated across to one side of the aeroplane. He hadn't checked it before he took off because he knew that there was plenty of fuel in the aeroplane. It was only going up for 20 minutes, not a problem. But in a turn, one tank ran out of fuel and the rest of it's in front of you. Attention to detail and knowing that your limitations do vary. This was a Halls Creek freight run, and the pilot survived and survived to have a few more accidents. But the end result really was that he was overweight, it was too hot, he was too heavy, and there's the result. He couldn't get off the ground, so it was put the brakes on and hold on. And being the northern part of Australia, there's the ditches they make up there are huge. They're not gutter size, but 6 foot deep and so on. So that's where the aeroplane is. Some of you may, I don't know, some of you may show an interest or get involved in helicopters. Again, and it's happening regularly as I proceed through my career, that a lot of pilots, once they get confident and start flying, pinch a bit here and pinch a bit there, and the next thing you know they've got take-off problems with rotor droop because the helicopter's too heavy. It's only too heavy because of the conditions and the altitude and so on. So it's a matter of spending some time doing the homework to make sure that you are providing a safe passage for the people that have joined you. In this case it was tourists. Worst was the fact that it force landed in a big pit of bull dust, which they tipped all the slops from the restaurant in. So only a good time. Another sad story. 210 operating out of Darwin, charter company. A particular pilot was originally a local policeman, had a passion for flying, went through the hoops, got his commercial, and eventually was entrusted to do some flying for the company. Eventually the company felt confident and they gave him a particular charter. 4 gentlemen from Melbourne had travelled to Darwin. One of the 4 had lost his wife just before the trip, and they thought that they'd take him on a bit of a trip to get his head above it all and try and get himself back on some sort of even footing. The pilot's brief was to leave Darwin, to fly to Kununurra, refuel, to take in the bungalows, and I think there was one other, might have been the meteorite crater, and then to fly to Catherine, where he'd refuel again, and from Catherine he would go and then back to Darwin. You might ask sometimes, how do we get the information that we get? And it's surprising just what we do pick up in the investigation. But in this case, to answer some of your questions, because no one lived to talk to us, we had to get information from other sources. And one of the sources, very often with tourists, is movie camera product. So what we found out was, through various processes, was that after he left Darwin, full tanks, he went to Kununurra and he topped up, and then he went to the bungalows, and from the bungalows we presume he went to Wolf Crater. From there he headed off to Catherine. On the way to Catherine, he noticed the fuel gauge is looking a bit low, and did a bit of quick thinking about it and looked at where he was, and he was approaching Timber Creek. But he knew that Timber Creek was a call-out because it was a weekend, so there'd be a call-out fee plus the cost of the fuel. And this is where we get back to the decision making. He decided that he probably could make Catherine. Just sidetracking for a moment, I've heard a number of times where people have said to me that we said to the pilot, "Have you got enough fuel?" And the pilot's answer is, "I think so." The word think says it all. You either have got enough fuel or you haven't. And if you don't know, well, there's your problem. So what actually happened was that through the camera footage we found out that instead of doing a circuit of the bungalows as planned, he did 3 or 4. Obviously they wanted to get more photos, and so he flew around and flew around. So by the time he got to Timber Creek, he thought, golly, I've used a bit more fuel than I planned on. But with a quick rethink on everything, he obviously decided that he didn't have to stop at Timber Creek and cause all the discomfort of finding the guy with the key and getting him out and paying him cash and so on. So he pressed on. When he was visual on Catherine, he let down fairly low, and as he was approaching, I think he was roughly about 5 nautical from Catherine, when the King Air Aeromedical radioed up that it was coming into land. And to this day we'll never know, but obviously we believe that instead of having a discussion with the King Air pilot and saying, if you're not on an urgent flight, can I please have the priority position because I'm a bit short on fuel. A lot of people don't like to admit they're short on fuel, and worst of all was he didn't speak to this King Air, he just replied, you had number 1, I'll orbit. So he went into an orbit, and of course what happens in an orbit, you go from straight and level to putting one wing up, one wing down. And that's when the engine stopped. No one survived. Once you get away from Jericho or major centres, a lot of pilots seem to think that nothing wrong with a bit of fun, and there probably isn't. And considering all the accidents usually happen between ground level and probably 500 feet at the best, the distance between the ground and yourself is a pretty valuable commodity. Anyway, when I asked the pilot how come he finished up like that, he said that he was landing for a comfort stop. And this is on a lake up near Texada, which is huge. And I said, well, you live on the land, why would you land in the middle of a salt lake? Where is the hardest part of the crust? And he said, oh, I'm on the edge. And I said, would all these terrified emu feet marks have anything to do with why you were here? And he never said anything. So obviously he was beaten up, poor old emu that was running for cover. Bit of fun turns sour. I'll come back to this one. I'm not too sure too many people would recognise this aeroplane. I'm standing where the engine is, and as you can see, the ring gear is just a bit forward of me, and then further back there's parts of the aeroplane till you get a line of trees, and one tree is not standing anymore. There's one that the aeroplane hit. And the short story of this really is that the pilot was visiting his sister. He'd been there before, and he still forgot the power lines running along that boundary. So between the power lines and the tree, there wasn't a lot of the aeroplane left. So if you want to do some beat-ups, do them high. Just another one of attitudinal, a high-profile Walloona person. This is many years ago. And his workshops were down near the airport, and his property was a fair way out of town, about 15 k's. So he flew down early in the morning to work on some trucks, and the family followed down later. Sort of a traditional thing where the kids played around in the workshop. He worked on whatever he was doing, and his wife helped. At the end of the day, they all decided to go home, and they all packed up and closed the workshop doors, and the wife and the kids got in the four-wheel drive and shot off down the road towards home. Well, as he's done many times before, so we heard, he would take off and then come in and give the kids a thrill by doing a pretty low level fly over the top of them going home. But with the concentration being as it was on other things other than flying, he stalled in the turn, in the urgency of being able to get out there and give the kids a thrill. This is just one that the guy lived on a property just over the Northern Territory, just over the border from WA. It's a Cessna 182, and he was out checking the stockyards, mostly checking the troughs to make sure there was enough water for the night for the animals, and so it didn't take much to work out what happened, because the wing tip was completely crunched, and it was obvious that he got a little bit lower than the average person should get in having a look at the troughs of water. So the aeroplane rolled up into a ball. This is after it was pulled out of the ditch, but the fin of the tailplane was actually in the windscreen. Worse was the fact that it was late afternoon, and the aeroplane being upside down, he was still strapped in. So his wife decided when it got dark and couldn't raise him that there was something wrong. And she drove about 15 kilometres over pretty tough terrain. And unfortunately, when she got to the cattle yards, he was down the ditch. And so when her headlights swept the area, she didn't see him. So she went home and thought, oh, he's probably pulled up somewhere out in the bush and he'll be okay, he'll arrive home in the morning. But when he didn't, she alerted a search party and she went back out herself. In the meantime, about 4 in the morning, he came out of his unconscious state, couldn't work out where he was in the pitch black, and thought he was still strapped in, so he released the seatbelt. Well, he fell on his head, didn't he? So I went and saw him in Darwin Hospital. Yeah, he was a pretty banged up man for quite a while. A lesson learnt. You get to the stage where you're doing something on a regular basis, just once too often you just disregard the little things that keep you safe. He was later gored by a bull just below his heart and lungs. He had a pretty tough life. Aeroplanes and power lines don't mix, regardless of fixed wing or rotary. The pilot was decapitated, and the cameraman was sitting on the seat on the side of the double door, and of course it fell pretty quickly to the ground, and the cameraman's feet were underneath the fuselage. Out of a moment's inattention, the disaster struck, one fatal and one very badly injured. There's often been debate as to whether hitting the water or hitting the ground's the harder. Well, they're both hard, there's no doubt about that. But the story is that if you hit the ground, the aeroplanes in the metal versions crumple and crush. In the composite constructions, of course, you've got a mixture of crushing and distribution of stresses. In the water landings, what happens is the impact tears the metal structures and opens it rather than compresses it. So that was a result of a takeoff at Garden Island many years ago, and you can see the instrument panel and everything forward of the rudder pedals was separated. Quite a hard one to handle in water. Loss of situational awareness, loss of horizon. It's a survey aircraft with a 13,000 hour commercial pilot, of which about 7,000 or 8,000 was on survey. It's Lake Lefroy. It's 28 kilometres long and about 15 kilometres wide. So you don't need much of a rainfall to put a lake of water on it. And of course, being so big, it's also tidal through wind. And this aircraft had arrived to do some work, ran into problems with the engine, flew back to Kalgoorlie, had the repairs done. They then took time off to go and have breakfast. So the whole routine changed from what originally started out as being planned. The aircraft did a number of line runs and successfully, and then turned to do another one. And we know that he hit the ground under cruise speed, because you don't snap propeller blades off like that, even on hard runways, unless you've got full power. So the aeroplane, as you saw, finished upside down. At the time of the accident, the water was about 6 inches deep, so it was just coming up to the leading edge of the wings. The two people on board had remained strapped in their seats through the landing, forced landing, and then when the engine dug in, the aeroplane rolled over, the windscreen shattered, and then it travelled another 150 metres through muddy water. So all that was coming in through a broken windscreen onto two people. The aeroplane stopped, and they're hanging upside down, both with back injuries, freezing cold, and communication problems. So fortunately they had a sat phone, and they did get communications, and they were rescued the next day. So it was a long night, very cold, very wet, and there was that much salt and mud inside the aeroplane they couldn't find the emergency rations for quite some time, particularly with the lack of mobility. I haven't got a straight answer for it. You get back to talking to your instructors and the likes, but flying over water at low altitudes, like just above the water, or flying into situations like this where you get mirages or you just get the fusion of the sky and the lake. Someone's not watching something to do with the instruments if they get down that low. In other words, they're obviously flying on memory, flying on confidence, and paid for it. Just to break from the morbid side of things, if you ever go into the remote areas, and as I do a lot, and you get offered a ride somewhere, only accept it if you can get A, a seat in the cabin, and B, with a seatbelt. Choice of landing area is not good. To be fair, the pilot ran out of fuel. So his choice, and that was just how it all finished up. So to get the aeroplane down, we had to chop the trees down. Oh, so common. It's Gascoyne Junction. I definitely had 3 greens. What do you do when you put the gear down? Where do you put it down? Gave me an answer. I said, and then you have pub checks? Yep. And you still had a green light all the way? Yeah. Okay. Well, if that's the true story, the maintenance people have got to go and find a problem with the aeroplane at great expense. So if it isn't the story, just fess up. It's just a series of incidents that happened years ago. That was a Cessna 182 parked at Broome. Some young fellow decided he'd try and fly it, and he wasn't a pilot. Similarly in Kalgoorlie, the Cessna 210, young fellow decided he'd have a fly early in the morning, and he got off the ground, but he hadn't taken the gas lock out. Needless to say, neither of those guys survived. It's a bit different, this story, but it's something that probably is worth putting in your memory bank for the future. In GA, there's a huge support, I suppose, by a lot of pilots to let people sit in the front right-hand seat, for whatever reason. This particular guy was a fly-in, fly-out worker, and it was some mine east of Kalgoorlie. Over the year, he always wanted the front right-hand seat. Unbeknown to the pilots that flew with him, that his motivation was to learn to fly. So he would learn by stealth. And he was successful because he actually got that off the ground at Kalgoorlie and landed at Norseman. But after Norseman, something went really wrong. And within a few minutes, he was on a dirt road, and there's the results of it. But he survived. Spent a bit of time in jail. Murrayfield is just a lesson for young guys that want to pinch an aeroplane. They untied the 2 concrete blocks that were under the main wings, but they didn't undo the one at the tail. So when they gunned it for takeoff, A, they didn't calculate the takeoff distance, B, they didn't make sure the wings would fit between the 2 hangers, and 3, they still had this concrete block on the tail. So it was a failure. This is not advertising to me, it's just that I happened to be there. It's a Cessna 310, and I can tell you it's 1993 federal election time. And the company in Kalgoorlie had been selected to fly 6 aircraft around all the Aboriginal communities to collect the ballot boxes. Numbers somehow swelled and they needed a 7th aeroplane. And they had a 7th aeroplane, but they didn't have a 7th pilot. But there was a casual guy in town that part-time drove the ambulance, part-time flew for these people, part-time this, part-time that. He was endorsed on the aeroplane, and they went off and started doing their rounds. Different aircraft went to different places. And after he departed a particular Aboriginal community on the rail line, he got a little way along, and one of the gentlemen, one of the Indigenous gentlemen on board, said to him, "Is there any chance you'd be going down a bit lower so we can take some footage? It's sacred ground down there." The pilot says, "Yeah, sure, no worries." So while they're down at a fairly low altitude, one engine stopped. And the adrenaline goes a bit haywire because not only you realise that you're a bit too close to the ground to be mucking around with a problem, but two is that you put the boost pumps on and flooded the engine when you shouldn't have. And three, you just cut the other engine. So now you're in trouble. We travelled up there and there was nothing wrong with the aeroplane except that it was totally wrecked. They all survived, but with abdominal pain, injuries and things like that. And it was in the middle of the desert, miles from anywhere. We had to do our bit. We were at the stage of going home, and the pilot of the helicopter was a Squirrel 350B. Said, "Do you want to take anything back?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to take all the avionics and the instrument panels." So he said, "That's fine." So there was about 4 of us plus the pilot. But when we got it all loaded, it wouldn't climb. Got rotor droop, the light come on. So after a couple of attempts, he decided that he would fly the helicopter across to another area and give us more scope. So he did that, took us across in relay, and eventually we still couldn't get airborne. So he said, "We've got a decision to make." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Either the instruments stay here or the ballot boxes stay here." I better not say anymore. This is a Shell company charter. 9 people being flown around a number of stations where they've got capped wells in the Gascoyne area. And late that afternoon, the lady pilot discovered she only had 2 legs coming down and 1 refusing. So after doing pretty much what any pilot would try to get that leg down, she decided that her best plan of attack was to land with the gear up. So that happened. By then, GWN had got there with all their cameras, and we had a pretty good film production going on. I ventured up there, and with the help of a local guy with his crane, we got it up and found the problem was one of the flipper doors on the main gear had not disconnected, but the nut and washer had come off and the bolt had gone halfway, allowing an angular displacement between the ram and the door, so it jammed it. So that's why the gear wouldn't come out. So I tracked back a bit further and I find that aircraft had just come off maintenance. And then I checked a bit further and I found out that the young lad who was a late 4th year apprentice had received a phone call that his grandmother had died. And he went and saw the manager and said, "You mind if I go? There's been a death in the family." And he said, "No." He said, "Have you finished what you're doing?" He said, "Yes." So no one checked it. And when you're doing your checks, there's a limit to what you can do physically on an aeroplane. But having a look at the gear doors and the control surfaces and the connections for them all, it's not very hard. It wasn't checked, otherwise it would have been picked up. So that's as simple as an accident can be. This is a first stage compressor blade out of an Elson 250C helicopter engine. It looks a pretty badly messed up set of blades. The entry guide vanes are much the same. The owner of the helicopter had let some of his staff fly it a few days earlier, and he rang them on the Saturday night and said, "Is it all right?" Any problems? He said, no, it's running fine. So he went out to do a compressor wash, Darwin Airport, and on the run down he heard some tinkling noises and thought, that doesn't sound right. So he called the engineers who did an inspection and found the damage. What had been discovered was that there's about 36 of these screw in the right hand corner there that holds the two halves of the compressor case together. And the engineer worked into the night and got to the very end of it when he was missing one bolt. So he thought, oh, it's got to be somewhere around here, and he had a quick look and couldn't see it. So he assumed it was somewhere but not in the engine, so he got a spare one out of the box and put it in. That little screw did that damage. And the only thing that came out of this was that the engines are so heavily derated that they still perform quite well. But the point made here is that the pilot, being the owner, probably was just a little bit more attentive, and he said, I just wasn't happy with the tinkling noise and I thought I'd have someone look at it. So it could have gone on to being a disaster if it hadn't been looked at. Cape Lebeek airstrip. That's the Cessna 210 that was taking off into the east. And the simple story there is decision making once again, accelerating in the takeoff mode. You can see how far he's gone down the strip, and the window door on his door opened, and so instead of aborting the takeoff, he tried to shut it, and that's where the 210 finished up. Logistically, there are problems up north, so think about that too. We've got to recover them. That's Emma Gorge, which was part of the El Crestro system, and that's an air van on its back after it's hit a pile of boulders and gone across the main road. 6 young girls from the travel agencies around the state got together for a bit of a travel to these areas so that they could speak firsthand to their clients. They actually travelled to Emma Gorge by road vehicle, and the pilot was to fly over there and pick them up and take them around the bungalows and Lake Argyle. When he loaded the people on board, he taxied back up the incline to the other end of the strip, 900 metre strip, and when I went to the airstrip, I noticed that there were reasonably solid tyre identification on the runway. Then there was a space of about 178 metres where there was no tyre marks, and then there was tyre marks all the way down to the end of the strip and to the boulders and over on its back it went. Fortunately, there were minor injuries and everyone survived. So then I had a look in the cockpit. I don't know whether anyone can see a problem with something in the cockpit there. I asked him why he aborted the takeoff and then continued it, and he said, I don't know. He said, it always gets off pretty smart, but he said this day it was sluggish. Can you see the handbrake? Well, we're talking about discipline and checking. There's a young lad in Geraldton, commercial pilot, and you'll notice I'm not giving hours, I'm just saying that they are commercial pilots, that they have reached the level of responsibility. And fortunately, he was going to pick people up. He didn't have anyone on board, but he did a mid-section takeoff on the main strip of Geraldton, which theoretically is long enough. But I've heard it said before, and it's been said many times, if you've got the runway, use it. Because if something goes wrong, you've still got runway left. So a lot of people ignore it and think, oh, piece of cake, got more than enough runway, I can do it. But here's what happens when something goes wrong, and he said the engine wasn't just going like it should. And so he said, I pulled the power off, and then I looked up and thought, no, I haven't got enough room. So he put the power on again to try and take off and do a circuit. We actually went across the main road to Mount Magnet, and that's fairly heavy with road trains. Never hit one of them. And that was what he saw when he got across the road, was the farmer's property. And he cleaned up the shed on the left-hand side with the port wing. Another commercial pilot doing skydiving. And as you know, with skydiving, they limit the fuel simply because they've got a load consideration to get up to 14,000 feet in the shortest possible time. It's money, 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 so fuel's one of the restricted items, but they don't crash every day because people manage their fuel. This particular day, the young lad realised he was in trouble with his fuel level, flew over 3 good airstrips because he could see the final airstrip in view and thought he'd make it, and another $350,000 worth of damage. This one's just a brief graphic illustration of how bad you can bend an aeroplane and everyone walk away with a few scratches and bruises. The pilot can't remember much after taking off and making a right-hand turn. This is East Wallaby Island in the Abrolhos. There is an aircraft there, but it's not the story I'm going to tell you. That was another one. There is nothing on that island bar some telecom equipment, and the story goes like this, that the guy had recently been employed by the charter company in Geraldton. Give him a go. In a very short space of time, he was given a job to take a telecom technician to the island. He was instructed to come straight back because the aeroplane was booked in for maintenance. The departure time was somewhere around 7, and it was I think summertime. Anyway, what we didn't know for some time was that he slept in, and he normally wore his contact lenses. But being in a rush, he thought he'd grab his glass case, and he grabbed his glass case, but there was no glasses in it. So of course when he got to the airport, the guy was waiting for him, and he thought, if I stuff this up, my job's on the line. So he said nothing, and put the technician in the aeroplane and took off to the islands. He got to the island, and the technician said, and I thought there was something wrong because he said he made 2 approaches to land and landed so long that we had to do a go-round. He said, however, he apologised and said that this time they'd land okay. Which he did, in the water. He ran off the strip to the very end, to the right of the jetty, and finished up on a rock ledge. Fortunately, the aeroplane sat at door level, water level, so they're able to wade ashore. The next island south, it's only 500 metres away or so, is Pigeon Island, which has got all the huts on, all the fishermen. And swinging on about 50 picks was 50 boats, all facing north. So he was attempting his landings downwind, and without any glasses, obviously his sight wasn't as good as it should have been. His licence was endorsed, his medical certificate was endorsed that was a restriction for his flying. So, as would happen, he didn't retain his job. But some short time later, he thought that he might as well make the most of it, so he applied to me for a claim against the loss of some valuable nav equipment, a nav bag, some personal jewellery, a Rolex watch, and some other valuable items. That's $6,000 worth in all. I very generously said to him, sure, no problems, just bring your receipts or photographs or proof of ownership and we'll consider it. Which suddenly meant that I got a response where 50% of the goods that he had no certificates for were the very expensive items, and the ones he had certificates for were the least expensive items. Time passed on, we couldn't pay him for the expensive items because he had no proof. As it turned out, some months later, the charter operator Googled his name and it popped up on a New Zealand website. You know, the high-speed boat that skips around the face of all the rocky, craggy mountains. and it was the 4 millionth passenger. So it was a big celebration, and there's all these people standing there taking their photograph, and guess who should be in the middle of it? Still with his crucifix, still with his gold watch, still with his gold bangles and everything else attached to him. 6 months later, I had a loss adjuster ring up from a company who said that they had a person making a claim for items lost in New Zealand. And I said, who is it? And he told me, and I said, what are the items? And I said, yep. It's a small world, you know, and I'm just giving this as the example of his preparedness for his flight and his preparedness to take the system on. This is just a bit of a fun one. I thought, I'll see if there's any pilots here that can do this. That's about a 6-foot ditch in the foreground, and the drummer went sideways for about 200 metres, and they left the front and rear spars intact. It's pretty smooth flying. Bit of a sad story again. Stationing in the Gascoyne, and the morning of the flight involved the family going across to the yards where the cattle were being prepared to go onto trucks and taken off the area. The 172 flew over with the pilot and a number of people, and the return trip was the same pilot, but the complement of people changed from those going over to those coming back. In the front right-hand seat was a young lad whose brother owned a Cessna 150, and this lad had spent a lot of time flying, and we don't know, but probably felt that he knew a little bit about what to do. En route back, which was only a 10-minute flight, an updraft or willy-willy or whatever got hold of the aeroplane and took it up about 1,000 feet and flipped it around. And during that time, the pilot was trying to regain control. And then all of a sudden he said, I saw the ground. He said, I'm not going to die like this. So in the process of struggling with the aeroplane, he noticed that the front right-hand seat passenger was also trying to fly the aeroplane. So he was actually fighting against the inputs of the passenger. And this is what I was saying about people in the front right-hand seat, that if they're going to be there, give them some pretty damn good instructions with respect to what they shouldn't do. Make sure the seat's right back and keep it on. But in that particular period of time, it was all hell broke loose. He finally got it out of a stall situation sufficient to land it, tore the landing gear off, and as he went along the ground, a branch broke off a tree and took the right-hand side of the aeroplane out. It killed the young lad in the front right-hand seat, and it took the baby out of the arms of the grandmother sitting behind and killed the baby and injured the grandmother badly. And the little 6-year-old girl in the left-hand rear seat walked to the homestead and got help. Weather, I think we remember Twin Comanche, but it was based in Esperance and had been there for many, many years, and the pilot was very experienced and had quite a few hours up. And they belonged to a club which was having its activities in Perth. They flew up for the weekend, and on the Sunday afternoon, late in the afternoon, we're heading back to Esperance. He was night VMC, and he had I think from memory, somewhere around about 100 hours a year usage on the aeroplane. Well, we don't know much about it other than the fact that we know the aeroplane was above the cloud for most of the trip. Other than that, he was flying IFR illegally. But eventually, when it was time to come down, he came down. We don't know what he came down through, but he came down. We suspect that he saw the lights of Esperance, and for some reason figured out where he was and made a right-hand turn. So, of course, in the right-hand turn, he's blanketed any vision of the lights of the town while he's making the turn. And the rest of it's pretty much history. Spread itself over the ground. That was the impact. That was the right wing tip. This is a little bit about discipline again. An R44 pilot working for a company in Kununurra. This is the Bungles. The R44 pilot originally was a ballet dancer and found utopia in Kununurra and decided to stay there. Looked around for a job and got a job cleaning up the hangars of the helicopter company. As the years progressed, he got himself a helicopter licence, and as time progressed he got his commercial, and he eventually was based down at the little airfield at the Bungles. The company had very strict rules on flying around the Bungles because of two reasons. One, you've got to get as low as you can to satisfy the tourism side of it, and you've got to stay on track because if you don't, you get into areas which are sacred Aboriginal grounds. He had 3 young girls from Kununurra on board, and one of them was Indigenous, and he decided, against all the rules and regulations, he'd just pop around the other side of the track and take her up to the face of one of these little rock outcrops and show some very, very rarely seen Aboriginal art. Well, because while he was trying to nudge up closer and closer trying to get a photograph, he's getting hotter and hotter. And when it come time for the engine and the rotor blades to get him out of it, they wouldn't do it. So that was the story there. They all perished. If you're going to fly along highways, my advice is don't, unless you're at a safe height. This was one of about 7 aeroplanes that was on a round WA NT tour, and the people that were involved had done it on a number of occasions, and in this particular case the pilot in this aeroplane had done it the year before. You can see in the photograph on the other side of the highway, which is the eastern side, going north, there's power poles. What you don't know, and it's not clearly defined on maps, is that a little feeder line goes across the highway every 100 kilometres. They got it. The gentleman who organised the tours was astounded and said, I can't believe that they were flying that low. This guy would never do such a thing. So he dug the camera out, and the same height was flown up the beach at Carnarvon. So if you think you know what people will get up to. This is the last one, and it's a place around Onslow. When I got up there, the pilot had learned his lesson and decided to write himself a little reminder, so every time he walked in the hangar, that would hit him in the face. Sometime later I was up there again, not for lack of fuel, but because he had remembered before taking off, forgotten to pick up something, so he got out of the aeroplane and walked off, leaving it there idling away. And unfortunately the aeroplane had other ideas and started to take off, and it went for about 10 metres and then turned left into a big pile of full fuel drums. So the third time I was up there, his flight was fatal. So, you know, I'm not pointing the finger at the guy because I liked him and he was a really top guy, but a lot of times attention to detail, the rigidity of your discipline, remembering what you've been taught, it just goes on. And that's just a sprinkling of any one year, although I've taken it over a period of time, and mostly it's gone back a fair way, so not too much is identified. The importance of the discipline of flying spreads a lot wider than just knowing how to fly, navigate, and so on. Ignoring the weather, which happened with the Esperance, because the man spoke to the refuelling agent and said, "Oh, I'll be right, I know the place well, I've done it before." They all perished. So if that's been of some help to you, I hope, as far as how simple how stupid, how easy accidents can develop, and the cross-section of people involved in these accidents would probably be no different to the cross-section of people here. Let's just hope that whatever you gain from seeing these sort of events occur is sufficient to just keep your eye on the ball. Thank you.